Section 1.2, Observational Studies versus Designed Experiments. We're going to look at these two objectives in this section. The first objective, we want to distinguish between an observational study and an experiment. To do so, let's look at two different examples. Both are looking at cell phones and brain tumors. In this first study, we have researchers who are wanting to investigate the cancer risk among Danish cellular phone users. They were followed for up to 21 years, so they kept track of over 400,000 people whose first cell phone subscription was between 1982 and 1995. In 2002, they recorded the number of people out of those 420,095 who had a brain tumor and compared that then to the rate of brain tumors in the general population. The results were that they found no significant difference in the rate of brain tumors between the two groups. So they concluded that cell phone use was not associated with increased risk for brain tumors. In this next example, researchers looked at whether chronic exposure to radio frequency radiation at two common cell phone signals, one used for analog cell phones and the other for digital cell phones. They looked at whether this caused brain tumors in rats. So they had two groups. The rats in the first group were exposed to the analog cell phone frequency. The ones in the second group were exposed to the digital frequency. Then they had a third group which served as a control and received no radiation. The exposure was done for 4 hours a day, 5 days a week for 2 years, and the rats in all three groups were treated the same except for the RF exposure. So after 505 days of exposure, the researchers reported that there was no statistically significant increase in any tumor type, including brain, liver, lung, or kidney, compared to that of the control group. In both studies, the goal of the research was to determine if radio frequencies from cell phones increase the risk of contracting brain tumors. So, whether or not brain cancer was contracted is the response variable. The level of cell phone usage is the explanatory variable. So in research, we typically wish to determine how varying the amount of an explanatory variable affects the value of our response variable. An observational study measures the value of the response variable without attempting to influence the value of either the response or explanatory variables. So that means in an observational study, the researcher observes the behavior of the individuals in the study without trying to influence the outcome. Now, if a researcher assigns the individuals in a study to a certain group, so they intentionally change the value of the explanatory variable, then record the value of the response for each group. This is what we call a designed experiment. So which is better, an observational study or a designed experiment? To give us a little glimpse at the answer, let's take a look at this next example. We're going to look at do flu shots benefit seniors? So researchers want to determine the long-term benefits of the flu vaccine on seniors aged 65 years or older. They looked at records of over 36,000 seniors for 10 years. The seniors are divided into two groups. Group 1 are those who chose to get a flu shot, and Group 2 were those who chose not to get a flu shot. After observing them for 10 years, it was determined that seniors who got flu shots were 27% less likely to be hospitalized for pneumonia or flu, and 48% less likely to die from pneumonia or flu. Based on the results of this study, would you recommend that all seniors go out and get a flu shot? Possibly. However, the study may have flaws, namely confounding. Confounding in a study occurs when the effects of two or more explanatory variables are not separated. Therefore, any relation that may exist between an explanatory variable and the response may be due to some other variable or variables not accounted for in the study. Those are then lurking variables. These are ones that are not considered in our study, but they affect the value of the response variable in the study. Also, lurking variables are typically related to the explanatory variables considered in the study. So one such possibility in this example would be that the seniors who chose to get the flu shot were more health conscious and so led overall more healthy lives, so have less possibility of contracting those illnesses. Just a possibility. Some lurking variables in our study are also age, health status, or mobility of the senior. Even after accounting for the potential lurking variables, the authors of the study concluded that getting a flu shot is associated with a lower risk of being hospitalized or dying from flu. So when we use observational studies, they don't allow a researcher to claim causation, only association. Objective 2, we want to explain the various types of observational studies. There are 3 major categories of observational studies. One is cross-sectional studies. These are observational studies that collect information about individuals at a specific point in time or over a very short period of time. The second is case control studies. These are retrospective, meaning that they require individuals to look back in time or require the researcher to look at existing records. In case control studies, individuals who have certain characteristics are matched with those that do not. And the third is cohort studies. These first identify a group of individuals to participate in the study, which is our cohort. That cohort is then observed over a long period of time. Over this time period, characteristics about the individuals are recorded. Because the data is collected over time, cohort studies are what we call prospective. So let's look at some examples and decide if they're observational studies or designed experiments. And if they're observational studies, we want to determine which type. So for part A, the researchers want to assess the long-term psychological effects on children evacuated during World War II. To do so, they obtain a sample of 169 former evacuees and a control group of 43 people who were children during the war but were not evacuated. Their mental states were evaluated using questionnaires. It was determined that the psychological well-being of the individuals was adversely affected by evacuation. So this would be an observational study, since there was no attempt to actually influence those observed. And then of the 3 types, this would be what we call case controlled. The subjects in the study were asked to look back and record how they felt in the past, which was retrospective. In this next example, xylitol has proven effective in preventing dental cavities when included in food or gum. So a total of 75 Peruvian children were given milk with and without xylitol, and were asked to evaluate the taste of each. So overall, the children preferred the milk flavored with the xylitol. This is a designed experiment. The researchers intentionally made a change and then administered that to the subjects of the study. In this next one, we have a total of 974 homeless women in the Los Angeles area that are surveyed to determine their level of satisfaction with the health care provided by shelter clinics versus the health care provided by government clinics. The women reported greater quality satisfaction with the shelter and outreach clinics compared to the government clinics. So this is an observational study, and it was collecting information at a specific point in time or for a very short period of time. So that would be a cross-sectional. In this last example, the Cancer Prevention Study 2 is funded and conducted by the American Cancer Society. The goal is to examine the relationship among environmental and lifestyle factors on cancer cases by tracking approximately 1.2 million men and women. Study participants completed an initial study questionnaire in 1982, providing information on a range of lifestyle factors such as diet, alcohol, and tobacco use, occupation, medical history, and family cancer history. These data have been examined extensively in relation to cancer mortality. Vital status of study participants is updated biennially. Cause of death has been documented for over 98% of all deaths that have occurred. Mortality follow-up of the CPS2 participants is complete through 2002 and is expected to continue for many years. This is an observational study, and it would be the cohort type. Data is being collected over a long period of time. Because performing experiments and collecting data can be expensive, it makes sense to use existing sources of data when they're readily available. One such source is a census. This is a list of all individuals in a population along with certain characteristics of each individual. The United States conducts a census every 10 years to learn the demographic makeup of the United States.